She filed for divorce 23 days after I lost my job. Not 3 months later, not after we tried counseling, not after we sat at the kitchen table and figured out how to survive the storm together. 23 days. That was all the time my wife needed to decide that a man without a title was a man without value. My name is Jordan Ellis. I am a black man, 40 years old, and for 12 years I worked as a senior project manager for a construction engineering firm that built bridges, transit stations, and public infrastructure across the Midwest. I was good at my job in the quiet way that kept other people's names clean. When budgets slipped, I fixed them. When subcontractors fought, I got them back to work. When city officials needed reassurance, I gave it. My wife Madeline liked that version of me. She liked the company dinners, the polished shoes, the hotel ballrooms, the way people shook my hand and called me dependable. But she never loved the pressure it took for me to be seen that way in rooms where certain men still looked surprised when I was the person in charge. She loved the result, not the cost, and when the result disappeared, so did she. Before we continue, tell me where you're watching from today, and if you believe betrayal sometimes arrives right before the biggest breakthrough of your life, stay with this story until the end. I lost my job on a Monday morning in a conference room with no windows. My supervisor, a white man named Carl Brenner, sat across from me with an HR director and a folder he did not need because the decision had already been made. The official reason was budget restructuring after a failed bid. The real reason was that I had refused to sign off on a bridge repair proposal that used cheaper materials than the city contract required. Carl told me I was being difficult. I told him concrete did not care about profit margins. 2 weeks later, I was unemployed. He kept his job. I carried a cardboard box to my car while people I had trained avoided eye contact. When I got home, Madeline was in the kitchen scrolling on her phone. She was white, elegant, and raised by parents who treated financial security like morality. I told her what happened, and for a few seconds she looked concerned. Then I saw the calculation begin. "How long until you find something else?" she asked. Not "are you okay?" Not what happened. How long? I said I did not know. She set her phone down slowly. "Jordan, we have a mortgage." "I know." "My parents were right," she whispered, almost to herself. I looked at her. "About what?" She shook her head. "Nothing." But it was not nothing. Her father, Peter Caldwell, had never thought I was good enough for his daughter. He did not say it directly. Men like him rarely did when there was wine on the table and witnesses nearby. He said things like, "Jordan has done well for himself," with the tone of a man complimenting a trained dog. He once asked if I had considered government work because stability suits people with fewer safety nets. Madeline told me not to take everything personally. That was her favorite sentence when the insult was aimed at me. 23 days after I lost my job, I came home from an interview that had gone nowhere and found her sitting in the living room with her mother beside her and a stack of papers on the coffee table. Divorce papers. Madeline had dressed carefully like she was attending someone else's funeral. "I can't live like this," she said. "Like what?" I asked. "Uncertain, afraid, waiting for you to figure things out." Her mother, Susan, looked at me with soft cruelty. "Marriage is hard, Jordan, but Madeline has to think about her future." I stared at the papers. "Our future, you mean?" Madeline looked away. "I don't think we want the same things anymore." That was a lie. We had wanted the same things when my paycheck made them possible. I picked up the papers and saw that she was asking to keep the house temporarily because she needed continuity. She wanted spousal support while I was unemployed because she had reduced her work hours during the marriage, though that had been her choice. She wanted half of my retirement, my truck, and reimbursement for money her parents had gifted toward renovations they had insisted on. I looked at her and understood that this had not been written in 23 days. She had been preparing before I lost the job, waiting for the moment when leaving would make me look like the failure. "Did you ever believe in me?" I asked. Her eyes filled with tears, but they were not for me. "I believed in who you were becoming." That sentence told me everything. She loved the climb, not the climber. I signed nothing. I packed a bag and moved into my younger brother's spare room across town. For the next 2 months, my life became smaller and colder. Interviews disappeared after promising first calls. People in the industry had heard I was combative. Carl's version of the story moved faster than mine because men like Carl had networks, and people like me had reputations that could be bruised with a whisper. Madeline's attorney painted me as unstable and financially irresponsible. Her father told mutual friends she had escaped before I dragged her down. I heard all of it. I said almost nothing. Not because I was weak, but because I was working. Before I was fired, I had been developing a proposal for a city infrastructure modernization project, a massive contract to repair stormwater systems, reinforce aging bridges, and redesign flood control routes across 3 counties. The firm had ignored my approach because it required partnering with smaller local contractors and using predictive maintenance software instead of the usual inflated emergency repair model. After losing my job, I rebuilt the proposal myself. I called every honest subcontractor I knew. I met with software engineers from a startup that could map structural risk better than firms 10 times their size. I convinced a retired city planner named Harold Weiss to review my numbers. Harold was a gruff old white man who had spent 40 years watching politicians overpay for bad work, and after reading my plan, he looked at me over his glasses and said, "This is either brilliant or career suicide." I said, "At this point, those are closer than they used to be." He laughed and helped me sharpen it. I created Ellis Civic Solutions from my brother's kitchen table. No fancy office, no assistant, no investors at first. Just a laptop, a stack of permits, and the kind of desperation that can become discipline if you refuse to let it become shame. I submitted the proposal 3 hours before the deadline. I did not expect to win. I only wanted the city to see that another way was possible. Then the review committee called me in for an interview. I wore my best suit, the one Madeline used to say made me look like I belonged in better rooms. The committee sat behind a long table, mostly white, mostly older, their faces skeptical in the familiar way. One man asked how a new company could manage a project of that scale. I answered with staffing plans, phased oversight, insurance commitments, and letters of intent from every contractor on my team. A woman asked why my former employer had not backed my model. I looked her in the eye and said, "Because the model saves the city money by preventing emergencies instead of profiting from them." The room changed after that. Not dramatically, but enough. 3 weeks later, while Madeline and I sat across from each other in a mediation office, my phone buzzed. I ignored it. Her attorney was explaining why I should accept a settlement that gave Madeline the house and left me with debt. Madeline sat beside him, calm and pale, twisting her wedding ring like she was practicing sadness. "Jordan," she said softly, "fighting this is only making things harder. You need to be realistic." My phone buzzed again. Then my brother texted, "Answer." I stood. "Excuse me." Her attorney sighed. "We're in the middle of mediation." "Then mediate quietly for a minute." I stepped into the hallway and answered. It was Harold. He did not say hello. "You won," he said. I leaned against the wall. "What?" "The city awarded Ellis Civic Solutions the contract. $50 million over 5 years with extension options if Phase 1 hits benchmarks." For a moment, the hallway tilted. "Say that again." Harold laughed. "You won the damn contract, Jordan." I closed my eyes. I thought about Carl in that windowless room, Madeline asking how long until I found something else, her father calling me a risk, the cardboard box, my brother's spare room, the nights I almost believed them. "Jordan," Harold said. "You there?" "Yeah," I whispered. "I'm here." When I walked back into the mediation room, everyone looked annoyed except Madeline. She looked curious. Her attorney pushed the papers toward me. "As I was saying, this is the most reasonable outcome given your current financial condition." I sat down slowly. "My current financial condition has changed." Madeline frowned. "What does that mean?" I placed my phone face up on the table as the official city announcement appeared on the screen. Her attorney leaned in first. His expression tightened. Madeline read the headline, then read it again. Local startup Ellis Civic Solutions awarded $50 million infrastructure modernization contract. Her face went blank. Jordan, she whispered. I looked at her. You wanted realism. Her attorney cleared his throat. We may need to revisit the financial disclosures. I almost smiled. No, you built your offer around who you thought I was when I had nothing. I think we should keep that same energy. Madeline's eyes filled with tears. I didn't know this was happening. I know. You should have told me. That time I did smile, but there was no warmth in it. You divorced me before I had the chance. She reached across the table. Jordan, I was scared. I moved my hand back. So was I, but I didn't abandon you. Her mother was not there to speak for her. Her father was not there to turn cruelty into advice. For the first time in months, Madeline had to sit alone with the person she had chosen to be. The divorce changed after that, of course. Suddenly her attorney wanted delays. Suddenly Madeline wanted counseling. Suddenly her parents believed marriage was sacred. Peter Caldwell called me himself and said we should not make emotional decisions during temporary setbacks. I told him the setback had ended, and so had the marriage. He did not like that. People like Peter respect success only when it makes you easier to control. The contract did not make life simple overnight. It made it busier, heavier, more public. Reporters called. Former colleagues sent congratulations, including some who had not answered my messages when I needed work. Carl Brenner's firm filed a complaint questioning the procurement process, but the city rejected it after Harold and the committee documented every scoring category. Then a local paper investigated why I had been fired and discovered the material substitution dispute. Carl resigned 2 weeks later. My former company lost 2 bids before winter. I did not celebrate. Bridges had to be repaired. Storm drains had to be rebuilt. People needed safe roads more than I needed revenge. Ellis Civic Solutions hired 30 people in the first year. I gave contracts to local firms that big companies had ignored for decades. I hired inspectors who cared more about safety than politics. I brought in young engineers from state schools, trade programs, and community colleges, people used to being underestimated until they outworked the room. On the first day of Phase 1, I stood at a construction site in a hard hat with my company name on it and watched crews begin work under a gray morning sky. My brother stood beside me grinning. $50 million, he said, from my kitchen table. Your kitchen table was expensive office space, I said. He laughed. You paid rent in stress. We both laughed, and for the first time in a long time, I felt the laugh go all the way through me. Madeline came to see me once after the contract began. She waited outside my temporary field office wearing a beige coat and the careful expression of someone hoping regret could look dignified. I almost walked past her, but I stopped. Jordan, she said, you look good. I'm tired. Still good. I waited. She looked toward the crews working behind me. I'm proud of you. That sentence might have saved me once. Now it arrived too late to be useful. Thank you. Her eyes shone. I made a mistake. Yes. I listened to my parents. I listened to fear. I thought losing your job meant losing the life we were building. It did, I said. She flinched. I mean, I thought you were giving up. No, Madeline, you thought my value ended when my title did. She wiped a tear quickly. Can we try again? The question hung between us, softer than I expected and heavier than I wanted. I thought about the house, the divorce papers, the mediation table, the way she said she believed in who I was becoming, not who I was becoming. No, I said. She nodded like she had known the answer before asking. Do you hate me? No, but I finally believe you. She looked confused. Believe me. When things got hard, you showed me what love meant to you. I believe what you showed me. She cried then, but quietly. I let her cry. Then I went back to work. 2 years later, Phase 1 finished ahead of schedule and under budget. During the public ribbon cutting for the first completed bridge, the mayor called me a visionary. I almost laughed. People love calling you a visionary after the practical work succeeds. Before that, they call you difficult. My mother sat in the front row with my brother, wiping her eyes with a folded tissue. After the ceremony, she hugged me hard and said, "You didn't let them make you bitter." I looked out at the bridge, at the workers taking photos, at families crossing safely over water that had flooded that road for years. I came close. "Close isn't the same as done," she said. That night, I returned to the small office Ellis Civic Solutions had finally moved into. On the wall near my desk hung a framed copy of the city award letter, not because of the money, though the money changed everything. I kept it there because of the date. It was the same day Madeline told me to be realistic. I learned that day that realism depends on who is speaking. To some people, realistic meant accepting the small place they had assigned me after I fell. To me, realistic meant knowing I had built enough skill, enough trust, enough discipline, and enough truth to stand up again. Losing my job did not destroy me. My wife leaving did not destroy me. Even the humiliation of being treated like a failed investment did not destroy me. What almost destroyed me was the quiet temptation to believe they had been right. But then the phone rang. The contract came through, and I understood something I wish I had known sooner. A person who only loves you while you are rising is not a partner. They are an investor waiting on returns. Madeline divorced me after I lost my job because she thought the story was over. Then I won a $50 million contract, and everyone called it a comeback. But it was not a comeback. I had never stopped being capable. I had only stopped being useful to people who could not see worth without a paycheck attached. The biggest victory was not the contract. It was not Carl losing his position, or Madeline regretting the divorce, or her father having to say my company's name with respect in rooms where he once joked about me. The biggest victory was standing on that finish bridge, watching people cross safely because I refused to sign off on something cheap, and knowing that my life had been rebuilt on the very principle they punished me for keeping. Integrity cost me my job. It cost me my marriage. But in the end, it built something stronger than both.